To Manchester then, our Premier League insider David Ornstein joins us. David, so much to get through. Let me start with the breaking news a little bit before we came on air this morning. Julen Lopetegui, is that how you pronounce it? I think it is, coming to Wolverhampton Wanderers, starting work in a week or so, am I right?
Perfect pronunciation, Rebecca, and they will hope it's the perfect appointment. Yes, that's right. Julen Lopetegui has been announced now as Wolves manager. It completes their search to replace Bruno Lage, who was sacked on the 2nd of October, I believe. And here's the itinerary. He should arrive in the UK towards the end of next week. He will be in attendance, if all goes to plan, at the Arsenal game that is played on Saturday evening at Molineux, UK time. And then he would take charge of Wolves from Monday, the 14th of November. So obviously that will be the start of the World Cup break for the Premier League. So he wouldn't get involved in actual competitive action until the Christmas period. But I think Wolves are delighted with this appointment. He's already been planning for their sort of warm weather training camp in Marbella and some potential January transfer activity. He's the most decorated manager they've ever appointed, of Sevilla most recently, Real Madrid, the Spain national team, and Porto. Fosun, the ownership of Wolves, actually wanted him in 2016 when they took over. It didn't happen on that occasion. In the interim, he has interviewed for jobs such as the Arsenal position when Arsene Wenger left. And he was Wolves' first choice originally for this position when Lage was sacked. His father was unwell, the timing wasn't right. They looked at other candidates like Michael Beale, of course. They thought he had him. He performed a U-turn. They relied on their interim coaching staff until the end of this year, but they ripped that up after the Leicester defeat. They reopened negotiations with Lopetegui. George Mendes, the super agent, was heavily involved. They got the deal agreed on Wednesday night, and Wolves fans and players and staff, I'm told, are very excited.
I'm sure they are, and they're second bottom of the table, so he has a very big job on his hands. Moving to today's action, Everton against Leicester a little bit later on. Demarai Gray, now at Everton, facing his old club Leicester, and this week you sat down with Demarai Gray for a fascinating interview for your website, David. Tell us more about what he said.
Well, let's not forget that Demarai Gray was one of the most highly rated players of his generation when he was coming through at Birmingham City, England under-21s. And then he got a pretty high-profile move to Leicester City in January of 2016. He went on to win the title within 6 months. But then it went a little bit downhill. Brendan Rodgers was appointed in 2019 February, and his role began to diminish. He ended up moving without much fanfare to Bayer Leverkusen in January 2021. Did okay there initially, but it didn't go to plan. 6 months later, he moved to Everton. Rafa Benitez signed him. A tumultuous season. Now it's starting to go well for him second time round. But in the interview I did with him, he reveals the long-term mental health battle he's been fighting and never spoken about in public. He talks about his time at Leicester when he was out of the picture, speaking to his mother and questioning whether he wanted to even play football anymore, that he'd fallen out of love with it. When he was at Leverkusen, he sent a text message to his uncle questioning his existence and his purpose in life. It got that low, it got that deep. But with the help of religion, his friends and family, he's pulled himself out of it, and he's doing really well. He says this is the happiest he's been in his career. He thinks this is the best form he's been in his career. And look at who he plays against today, Leicester City. So it could come full circle. He still even has international ambitions, and it was a real pleasure hearing a footballer, Premier League footballer, speaking about this in public, and especially in what is Men's Health Awareness Month around the world.
Yeah, he did mention, didn't he, that men often are the ones that don't talk enough. So well done to Demarai Gray to open up to you, David, like he did. The World Cup, of course, round the corner. We've talked about it this morning already, about the injuries to some players. Mitrovic not playing today, a non-serious ankle injury. But, of course, these players, David, have been put in this ridiculous position, you have to say, where one little tiny calf strain and they're out of the World Cup.
Yep, there's no preparation time. There's no rest time ahead of Qatar. Talk about this all we like, but it's happening and it's not looking good for many players. But the headline news to bring you today, unfortunately for Ben Chilwell, is that he has been ruled out of the World Cup. The Chelsea left-back suffered a hamstring injury in their Champions League game in midweek. He underwent scans. The results have just come back and they are not positive. It's a significant injury, Chelsea have said, and we think that is a tear that will not require surgery, but could keep him out for around 3 months. Ben Chilwell took to social media to say his dream is over in that sense. a number of England injury concerns, of course. And to be fair to Gareth Southgate, I'm not sure he was one of his top hopes for the World Cup. He hasn't played him very much at all, but he would have been in the squad by the looks of it. Son Heung-min, meanwhile, of Tottenham Hotspur, has undergone what reports suggest is successful surgery yesterday on multiple fractures to his eye socket, and he could have a chance of playing for South Korea at the tournament. He may take inspiration for Kevin De Bruyne, who did the same in the Champions League final of 2021, and he returned to play in the Euros 3 weeks later. So it's a bit of a race against time for him. We think he is going to be out of Tottenham's remaining 3 matches before the break for that tournament. There are players who are on yellow cards that I think you've spoken about already in the programme. If Harry Kane, for example, gets one more, he would be suspended for the last round of fixtures. So watch this space on that one, and a whole raft of players from the Premier League and beyond who will not be taking place in Qatar, but the show goes on regardless.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. For even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you over there.